Peter, there were some protesters outside that defence summit there in Perth today. As you are no doubt aware, there's a Stop AUKUS lobby group in Western Australia very concerned about the impact of the submarine program, particularly for residents in Perth. They're pointing to security and safety fears around hosting nuclear-powered subs off the coast of suburban Rockingham, just 30 or so minutes south of Perth. Could that be dangerous for residents, as this group keeps claiming?
Look, I think if you look at the record, particularly of the US Navy and the Royal Navy who we're partnering with on nuclear safety, it is impeccable. There has not been any major issues. They've been dealing with a fleet of submarines for decades and decades and decades. They've managed waste carefully and properly. And of course, the maintenance that we'll be undertaking on these submarines will be to that world-class standard that needs to meet the standards of the US Navy, the Royal Navy, the international regulator. And of course, being nuclear safe, being a nuclear sovereign country in relation to the AUKUS agreement is absolutely front of mind in the Australian Submarine Agency. And this is one of those areas where we have to look at the science and we have to look at the safety record of the partners and the people we're working with. So I'm incredibly confident that this will be a very safe, very secure nuclear capability in these submarines for the power and energy that they'll provide for a critical capability for Australia.
Peter, I was also keen to get your take on some comments from the new Chief of Army in the UK suggesting that troops there needed to be ready to fight a war within 3 years. What did you make of those comments? Some people are saying war in that timeframe is inevitable, others arguing that that's a sort of alarmist rhetoric that we're hearing.
Well, look, I certainly wouldn't say it's inevitable. And if you look at the approach that the Australian government has, the United States government, our friends and partners in the Indo-Pacific, including the United Kingdom, the focus is actually on deterrence. And one of the ways you do deterrence to ensure that we don't end up in that conflict is you need to have a credible defence force with critical capabilities that are ready to fight if need be. And that is one of the key things that will put in potential adversaries' minds, that their ability to achieve their strategic goals through the use of force is not guaranteed. So I think what we're doing is we're moving into an era where we've seen the conflict in Ukraine, we see problems in the South China Sea, we see obviously the war in the Middle East as well, is that readiness and preparedness for our military forces is critical. And this is one of the reasons that we have a bipartisan consensus in Australia on ending strategic warning time. The ending of strategic warning time means we have to raise levels of preparedness for our defence force and the readiness from our personnel to our ships to our logistics to our munitions in case we do have to fight, because that's the way we increase deterrence and that's the way we avoid any conflict being inevitable. And I think that's a really important focus of what you're seeing, and I think that reflects the comments that were made by the Army Chief in the UK. He's talking about his Army being ready and being prepared for conflict in order to deter it and to help ensure that it doesn't happen.
Professor Peter Dean, we'll let you get back to that Defence Summit there in Perth. Appreciate you making the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.